This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Chapter 48, First Claiming, and her symbol is the dragon fang. Min struggled up the cobblestone street, pushing through crowds that stood white-faced and staring, those who were not screaming hysterically. A few ran, seemingly without any idea of where they were running, but most moved like poorly handled puppets, more afraid to go than to stay. She searched the faces, hoping to find Egwene, or Elaine, or Nynaeve, but all she saw were Fallmen, and there was something drawing her on, as surely as if she had a string tied to her. When she turned to look back, Shanshan ships burned in the harbor, and she could see more in flames off the harbor mouth. This is kind of the aftermath of the battle here, with the heroes against the Shanshan. And I wanted to note that Min is being pulled to Rand. The pattern's putting her there.
I assume that's Taviran pulling.
Yeah. He needs someone to find his dying body on the ground.
Right. Just out of curiosity, the header and the title? The Fang and First Claiming?
First Claiming. Why didn't I didn't even think about it. Min's claiming him.
I think the First Claiming in the Dragon Fang is, of course, the Dragon Fang being...
Well, there's contention between Lanfear and Min.
True. Lanfear has first claim, though.
Yeah, but there's the little scene with Egwene where Egwene walks in and she says, "Oh."
Mm-hmm.
And that whole thing. Well, Min's cuddling Rand.
That's true.
But Lanfear traces the dragon's fang on Rand's forehead.
Then that would make the appropriate Dragon Fang header.
All right.
Yep.
All right. She notices Bael'Damon's ship is sailing out.
Yeah, about time.
She did not blame Bael'Damon for not waiting longer. There was one Shanshan vessel, I like this scene, in the harbor not burning, though its towers were black from fires already extinguished. As the tall ships crept toward the harbor mouth, a figure on horseback suddenly appeared around the cliffs, skirting the harbor, riding across the water. Min's mouth fell open. Silver glittered as the figure raised a bow. A streak of silver lanced to the boxy ship, a gleaming line connecting bow and ship. With a roar she could hear, even at that distance, fire engulfed the foretower anew, and sailors rushed about the deck. Min blinked, and when she looked again, the mounted figure was gone.
Brigida!
Hey!
Silverbow! Hey!
First appearance.
Doesn't she say a few lines when they summon her with the horn?
She's the one that makes fun of Rand.
Totally.
She's like, "Oh, Luce Theron, there's always a girl, isn't there?"
That's right. Yeah, so I guess second appearance here. It's fun to see her as a hero of the horn and know that she's going to be just kind of like Matt's buddy, later on.
Yeah.
Maybe like drinking buddies.
Brigida walks on water.
I think that has a lot to do with the horn and the meshing of Tel'aran'rhiod in the real world.
Oh, sure.
And the abilities of the heroes of the horn have a lot to do with the fact that they're still...
The heroes can't be killed. They're not really here nor there.
Yeah. They're kind of part of the world of dreams, manifest in the real world, which is also, I think, what binds Rand and Ishamael together, and why, the effect of the horn and Tel'aran'rhiod being in the real world is why you can see the battle over all of Falma.
Min gave herself a shake and started to climb the street again. She had seen too much that day for someone riding a horse across water to be more than a momentary distraction. I liked that.
Been a crazy day.
No one tries to stop her on her way, but she seems to be getting pulled in the direction of Rand.
Yeah, I mean, she goes straight to him like an arrow.
Yeah. Rand lay sprawled on his back under an oak, face pale and eyes closed, left hand gripping a hilt that ended in a foot of blade that appeared to have been melted at the end. His chest rose and fell too slowly, and not with the regular rhythm of someone breathing normally. Taking a deep breath to calm herself, she went to see what she could do for him.
Melting of the sword, of his father's sword. It always really made me sad.
That makes me think that, like you say, that this is the end of Rand as a farm boy, this part here. So is his connection to the two rivers. He loses his father's sword here. It's destroyed.
He admits to himself, finally, that his father is not his father.
Yeah.
He lets go of that. I think it says here he lets go of that wish.
And it's a physical representation of the connection, and it's destroyed.
Yeah, the death of a boy, the rise of a man.
Yeah.
This is really him growing up here. Without actually killing Tam, Jordan strips Rand's connection to his father away.
And of anything. really.
Any homeland. And I think that's why it's so powerful later when they confront each other, and Tam is the one who helps Rand break through.
And then in the next chapter, Egwene's gone, Elaine's gone, Nynaeve's gone, everyone's gone except Min. Min and Varen are still there.
Which aren't really... no one from his hometown is there.
No,
he loses every connection he has to the Two Rivers. And he still isn't sure that he's the Dragon Reborn.
Oh, Rand.
He's lost. And that's why he goes off on his walkabout.
You could call it that. It's killabout, maybe.
Yeah, his killabout. I like that.
I'm going to read this next part because it's important. I'll start. I read this sentence already, but I'll start here. Taking a deep breath to calm herself, she went to see what she could do for him. First was to get rid of that stub of a blade. He could hurt himself, or her, if he started thrashing. She pried his hands open, and winced when the hilt stuck to his palm. She tossed it aside with a grimace. The heron on the hilt had branded itself into his hand, but it was obvious to her that was not what had him lying there unconscious. How did he come by that? Nynaeve can put a salve on it later. And then she finds the hole burned through his coat on the left side. Opening his coat, she pulled up his shirt. Breath whistled through her teeth. There was a wound burned into his side, but it had cauterized itself. What shook her was the feel of his flesh. It had a touch of ice in it. He made the air seem warm.
So there's a couple of important things going on there. First, of course, twice and twice shall he be marked.
Now he's got 2 herons.
And we talked a little bit about that when he got the first one, that how it's the same heron on the sword. It's that he reversed his grip.
Yeah.
And turned the sword over. And then, of course, there's the super important wound, which is the hole burned in his side. And that's the wound that kills him, eventually.
Yeah.
That kills his body.
Well, the first of 2 wounds.
I assume that what happened was when Ishmael stabbed him, he poured a bunch of the true power into that wound. And it becomes a sinkhole. And that's why it won't heal, is because basically the one power can't get rid of the true power.
Whatever this taint
whatever
is.
the taint is. And so while it can heal the flesh, it becomes this basically cesspool of true power living in Rand's flesh, which I think may be fed by his increasing use of the tainted one power. Because often he says it beats in rhythm.
Yeah, and that made me wonder a bit about the true power and the taint. What is the taint? Is it the true power? Or is it...
it's part of the Dark One.
Tainted from using the true power?
I think so. I think that's what the Saw are.
Yeah.
I think it's burning away at the soul. I don't think Ishmael ever uses the one power. He's always using the true power.
Yeah, we've been looking for a scene and we haven't been able to find any time that he actually uses the one power.
There's a whole huge black cloud that's behind him. It could be the beginning of their connection. They kill, basically they kill each other, they stab each other. But that big cloud that he sort of sends down the staff into...
The blackness behind Baelzamon boiled up around him and his face hardened. And screamed as it pierced his side. Burning like a white-hot poker, the void trembled.
So I assume the blackness behind Baelzamon boiled up around him. That's him gathering the true power. And because they're in a version of Teleran-Riyadh, you can sort of see, that's when you see them using the true power, and it's represented by like a black shadow behind him. And so that's him gathering the true power up. And so when he stabs Rand, it's not just the physical wound, it's also the true power that he pours into it.
And we've only talked about this a little, and there's not that much more than this that I can say about it, but that whole battle scene has elements of, the heroes, and the scene with Rand and Ishmael fighting has this Teleran-Riyadh element that is affecting everything that happens, which is why Birgitte can ride her horse across water. Whereas when she's in the physical world, she can't ride a horse across water.
Right.
She's a real human woman.
Right.
But in this, and I believe Ishmael is somewhere in the similar plane of the horn does something.
So I have to wonder if
that
the
changes
horn
reality.
Doesn't bring the heroes back to life, but it actually takes a battlefield or whatever and puts it in Teleran-Riyadh, and then the heroes not being alive, but being in Teleron Riyadh, have access to the battlefield.
I think it's something
Basically,
like
the
that.
fog is sort of the connection.
I kind of
between the two
pictured it
worlds.
more like a nightmare in Teleran Riyadh, where it can be as real or unreal as you
Sure.
believe. I don't know, though. It's,
But we can
something like
definitely say
that.
that the weird effects in the battle are due almost entirely to the blowing of the horn and its connection to
Right.
Teleron Riyadh and the heroes.
Which is why Rand and Ishmael are in the sky as opposed to on the ground somewhere.
Exactly.
In the sky and giant. Is it? Oh, it's Moraine that shows him the poster later and says, yeah, no, not just all of Falma could see you, also the surrounding villages.
And so I want to talk a little bit about where Moraine and Lanfear have been during the flicker. Because we know Lanfear up to that point was tracking Rand.
Right.
And she turns up here in Falma. So I was wondering, there was some speculation on Discord as to whether or not she was maybe following a dark prophecy and so was there to show up, or maybe she, once the horn was blown, was something attracted her to that location.
Yeah, and I mean, I got to point out, once again, Ishmael and Lanfear find Rand as soon as he can be found, and they're the first.
Right. They do seem to be able to track him through his Taviran effects. I think we get something about that later.
Yeah.
But it also could have been just the fact that he was in the sky, in fire. And if she was anywhere near there, she would have seen it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, Moraine talks a little bit about being in Falma to try and save some Aes Sedai.
Yeah, the captured Aes Sedai.
I was just wondering why. I guess I didn't understand how she ended up in Falma. I guess it was probably because of one of the prophecies.
Well, the dark prophecy that is written on the wall in the Shinaran dungeon, doesn't that include Lanfear and Tomenhead?
It does.
So, and Moraine knows about that, and I would imagine so does Lanfear.
True.
Yeah. They both know to be there.
So I guess Moraine was just waiting there because of the prophecy.
Something's going to happen here.
And then was also trying to rescue her sisters.
Which did not work out. Says.
Which is interesting that, like, Nynaeve and Elaine have more success than Moraine. We often think of Moraine as, like, almost infallible, but, like, she clearly does not succeed in rescuing anybody from the Shan-Chan.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if what she was actually doing, if that's what she says she was doing. If she has another purpose. I mean, she's obviously there waiting for Rand, but I wonder what else she was doing there.
Yeah, Nynaeve is just brazen.
Yeah.
She's willing to do anything.
So back to Rand, who has currently got a hole in his side, is icy cold, and is kind of slowly dying.
She drags him out of the street and into a room, cursing him the whole time. Yeah. I'm imagining a 5-foot-tall woman dragging a 6.5-foot tall man. It's not easy.
He's just like on the stairs. God, thump, damn it, thump. Why, thump? Do you have to be so thump big, you darn lummox?
She puts him in bed and puts blankets over him because he's so cold. It was no small task getting him to the room, or up onto the bed, but she managed it only with a little hard breathing and covered him up. After a moment, she stuck her hand under the blankets and winced and shook her head. The sheets were icy cold. He had no body warmth for the blankets to hold. With a put-upon sigh, she wriggled under the covers beside him. Finally, she put his head on her arm. His eyes were still closed, his breathing ragged, but she thought he would be dead by the time she came back, if she left to find Nynaeve. He needs an Aes Sedai, she thought. All I can do is try to give him a little warmth. For a time, she studied his face. It was only his face she saw. She could never read anyone who was not conscious. I like older men, she told him. I like men with education and wit. I have no interest in farms or sheep or shepherds, especially boy shepherds.
Yeah, she's stuck.
Oh, Aradia. I'm just going to read that. This sums up Min's relationship with Rand so well. All she can offer is a little warmth.
But that's what he needs.
Yeah.
That's always what he needs.
I think Min does a lot for Rand's sanity through the next 10 books.
Oh, yeah. especially after she sort of goes away. She doesn't go with him to the waste, but once he returns from the waste and she's there with him, she's a big part of what keeps him sane.
Just there with him pretty much the rest of the time.
Question. Rand survives a stabbing to the side, misses any major organs, cauterizes itself. Somehow, with some healing, he's able to survive.
Mm-hmm.
How does Ishmael survive a sword to the heart?
I have no idea. Why does the sword melt?
I have a theory.
Okay.
Whenever we look at Ishmael's eyes, and especially his mouth, we see roaring fires.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that Ishmael, on the inside, is not much more than a shell and a burning fire, consumed by the true power.
Maybe.
So when the sword penetrated his chest, it actually hit the furnace that is inside of Ishmael, that is the burning of his soul.
I like it.
In the true power. And the true power, of course, has no problem melting an otherwise unmeltable sword.
I like it, and it plays right along with the first thing that popped into my head was that something kind of interesting happens in that sword fight between Rand and Ishmael, where Rand is talking about being in the void and I think holding Saidin, and there's Saidin flowing through the sword, and he talks about, from his perspective, you can see each individual particle of the sword, and it's all layered, and there's this power running through the sword as well as him. And so perhaps when one power charged sword meets true power charged Forsaken, they cancel each other in some kind of way.
Yeah, or they interact in a violent, melting,
explosive
manner.
way.
Yeah.
And, the last line of that chapter is something like, the world exploded in fire.
Oh, I like the idea that Sir Septon says that Ishmael is literally burning pain all the time. And that's part of why he's so insane, is he's just in constant pain. Could be.
Yeah. I do think something special is happening with the power wrought sword with the power in it.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think Ishmael would melt any sword.
I'm nodding. It's too bad we don't get to see him get stabbed again.
How does he finally die? What finally kills him?
Kalendor.
And Kalendor is not going to melt.
He gets stabbed with Kalendor.
Because it's a true power Angreal.
Yeah.
So it's possible that one of the reasons that Kalendor needed to be a true power Angreal is that's the only thing that wouldn't melt when thrust into the body of Ishmael.
Not just a saw Angreal, but a sword.
But the sword itself.
To cut somebody with.
Right. And no other weapon would have been able to kill Ishmael.
I like that.
Yeah, because we see Ishmael, he's wounded in book 3. He has a chest.
And with the ability to channel a virtually unlimited amount of true power, you could never really overpower him. Ishmael has the ability to channel a virtually unlimited amount of true power.
Sure.
At the end of the series. So with that in mind, even Nynaeve, Rand, whoever, all in a circle together would never really be able to overpower him. In just a brute force, one power versus true power.
Maybe. I don't know how unlimited his true power channeling is.
I think he's supposed to be able to draw as much as he wants.
Without burning himself out.
I don't know how that works.
I think there's a similar limit with the one power. That because the more the Dark One grants you, the more you can channel, but I think there's a limit on if you're more powerful, you can channel more. And that's why, Ishmael being one of the most powerful channelers ever.
Yeah.
Again, not that we ever see him channel the one power, only ever the true power.
Right.
Sometimes I wonder if Ishmael is even a one power channeler. But I guess he was before he turned to the dark side. So.
Yeah. Haven't we decided that in order to channel the true power, you have to be able to channel the one power?
Yeah, but I still think about that every once in a while and still wonder.
Yeah, me too.
Just because we never ever see him channel the one power. So it's just the idea that he's maybe has lost that ability. Maybe by using the true power as much as he has, he's lost the ability to use the one power.
The insanity explanation's the best explanation.
He is pretty nuts.
Yeah. Oh, the next thing Min says. But then you aren't a shepherd, are you? Not anymore.
Nope. He's the dragon. Proclaimed in the sky with fire.
There was a sound in the hall, and she raised her head as the door opened. Egwene stood there, staring at them by the light of the fire and the lamp. "Oh," was all she said. Min's cheeks colored. I'm keeping him warm. He's unconscious, and he's cold as ice." Egwene did not come any further into the room. "I felt him pulling at me, needing me. Elaine felt it too. I thought it must be something to do with what he is, but Nynaeve didn't feel anything." She drew a deep, unsteady breath. "Elaine and Nynaeve are getting the horses. We found Bella. The Shanshan left most of their horses behind. Nynaeve says we should go as soon as we can, and Min, do you know what he is, don't you?"
Quick question for you. Why didn't the pattern pull on Nynaeve? Why didn't Rand need her? She's the one who could heal him. I would think she would be the one the pattern would want to pull towards him, but instead it pulls the women who love him.
Min responds, "Whatever he is hurt. I can do nothing for him except keep him warm. Maybe Nynaeve can. Min, you know that he can't marry. He isn't safe for any of us, Min." "Speak for yourself," Min said. She pulled Rand's face against her breast. "It's like Elaine said. You tossed him aside for the White Tower. What should you care if I pick him up?" The Queen looked at her for what seemed like a long time. Not at Rand, not at all. Only her. She felt her face growing hotter and wanted to look away, but she could not. "I will bring Nynaeve," Egwene said finally. There's something happening there.
Oh, between the girls?
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think Egwene's accepting that.
Rand's not hers?
Yeah, she can't keep him and not keep him. But she's never, I don't think she's ever had that thought before.
Her whole life, Rand has been hers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Her whole life. And she's having trouble adjusting to the fact that he's not anymore.
Even now, after living in the White Tower and traveling, she still is kind of in this mindset where this is a thing, but it's not.
What if Egwene had gotten to him first? Do you think that would have changed the relationship at all?
Doomed world. I don't know. Changed
any of their relationship. Rand and Min, Rand and Egwene. Like, would Egwene and Rand, like, if they'd been caught together and Min had walked in on them and been the one to say, oh, would Min have backed off? Would she have, like, let Egwene? And then would Egwene have, like, become who she was? And, I mean, it could have changed everything.
It could have. I mean, we know it's fated. We know that Min being with Rand is one of the inescapable fates.
I'm ignoring the Min vision, we know it's going to happen part.
I do think that things would be different if Egwene had found him vulnerable and dying.
I'm just trying to figure out why Egwene and not Nynaeve.
You mean why Min and not Nynaeve?
No, why was Egwene pulled to Rand's side? Because I don't think she's really in love with him anymore. Whereas
Radia says so the ladies can resolve their feelings.
Maybe.
Sir Septon says to clear the rubble, to end it. Why not Nynaeve?
Right?
I have no reasons. I suppose that's just who needs to be there. I realize that's a simplistic way to sum it up, but...
Yeah, but Elaine was being pulled as well, and she didn't show up.
She just didn't get there first.
She sent Egwene.
That is interesting, though, because, you know, there's no sexual nature in the relationship, for lack of a better term, sexual nature in the relationship between Nynaeve and Rand. But there is between the other three.
Right. Even if it's dying with Egwene.
There's still a thing.
So I guess, I mean, it's the women he has a relationship with, but that seems...
Why?
Yeah,
why
I don't understand why that's important.
And he's freaking dying.
Someone needed to cuddle with him. I guess that's like the closest. He needed someone to cuddle with.
He needed cuddles.
He needed cuddles. That's Taviran cuddles. That's what it boils down to.
Dragons need cuddles too.
We see a little bit more about Min's vision with Rand and the other woman, which we know is Avienda, yet to come.
Yeah.
And she talks about, are you going to try and dandy all three of us on your knee? And yeah, pretty much. Not that he's like...
I thought about that for a little after I read it, and like he's not like strategizing like, how do I juggle three girlfriends?
No.
It just happens, and he doesn't, like, he's moved to the next place. He doesn't really have much choice in the matter, and they're either there or they're not.
He does kind of fall backwards into each of the relationships. In Elaine's case, literally off the wall, garden wall, he falls backwards into that relationship.
I'll read this part.
I like how this suggests that the third girl is Lanfear.
Oh, yeah, it kind of does.
It totally does. Because she talks about the third girl, unknown, and then in comes Lanfear.
Yeah. It may not be your fault, Randall Thor, but it isn't fair. Not, Randall Thor, said a musical voice from the door. Loose there in Telamon, the dragon reborn. Min stared. It goes on to describe Lanfear, the most beautiful woman ever.
Which, again, we talked a little bit about maybe Lanfear putting out a bit of that low-level compulsions that everyone thinks she's super gorgeous.
Yeah.
Especially when we saw, like, Loyal get all misty-eyed over her.
Min felt herself bristle. What do you mean? Who are you? The woman came to stand over the bed. Her movements were graceful. Min felt a stab of envy, although she had never before envied any woman anything, and smoothed Rand's hair as if Min were not there. He doesn't believe yet, I think. He knows, but he does not believe. Oh, we were talking about this before. It's Lanfear that says it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good insight into Rand's character.
I have guided his steps, pushed him, pulled him, enticed him. He was always stubborn, but this time I will shape him. Ishmael thinks he controls events, but I do. Her finger brushed Rand's forehead as if drawing a mark. Min thought uneasily. It looked like the dragon's fang. Rand stirred, murmuring. The first sound or movement he had made since she found him.
Interesting.
What's that?
Response to the dragon fang?
Does she channel? I agree with Mackenzie. I think she might have done something.
I think she heals him.
She saves his life, potentially.
That murmuring is a response to the healing?
Yeah.
Because Min wouldn't know if she channeled.
No.
And there's nobody else in the room to know if she channels.
Egwene's gone.
Yeah. I think he totally gets healed there.
Me too. Who are you? Min demanded. The woman looked at her. Only looked, but she found herself shrinking back into the pillows, clutching Rand to her fiercely. I am called Lanfear, girl. Min's mouth was abruptly so dry she could not have spoken if her life depended on it. Luce therein was and is mine, girl. Tend him well for me until I come for him. And she was gone.
Further evidence for the healing is in the next chapter. I believe Moraine says, Nynaeve must have done something or he wouldn't survive, but she denies it. Well, of course, because she didn't do anything. Lanfear did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I missed that. I always thought that Nynaeve had done something.
Nice. And then the chapter closes with a perspective from Bayar galloping away from the battle.
He's riding away.
Galloping away from the sinking sun.
He didn't see what happened.
Yeah.
He rode into the mist. He heard sounds of battle.
Bornhold even has that thought in the last chapter that his only regret was that his son wouldn't know how he died.
But he's sort of saying dark friends like that Perrin of Two Rivers. I'm wondering, he didn't see Perrin do anything. He's just making assumptions.
Oh, yeah. Dark friends betrayed them. Dark friends are always betraying Bayar. Or so he thinks.
Yeah, so he was standing outside the fog. Because he was standing away from the battle, so the fog rose around the battle.
Yeah.
But he didn't get good details. He just knew there was a battle. And
Bornhold never returns.
Bornhold dies. And then he rides off. And he just sort of assumes that because he saw Perrin, and because he assumes Perrin's a dark friend, and because he assumes the Seanchan's a dark friend, and therefore all dark friends are in league, and Perrin must be in league with the Seanchan, that Perrin must have killed Bornhold. Not at all a leap of logic there. None whatsoever.
The simplest answer is usually the truest one. Everybody's a dark friend. Simple answer.
No.
Falma truthers.
I noticed that Bornhold said, first, ride to my son and tell him how I died, and then go to Patron Nile. Bayar does the reverse. He goes to Patron Nile first.
I did not notice that.
I don't know if it matters, but Bayar does not obey orders directly. He should have gone to the sun first. Pretty excited to just wrap up the Great Hunt here. We're getting really close to the end. We've got 3 chapters left, one of which doesn't count.
Yeah, and it's like 15 pages.
In total, left in the book, yeah.
Yeah, in total.
I mean, so the girls did a great job wrapping up the battle.
They got the awesome part.
They really got the awesome part.
We get the aftermath.
I'm not jealous. Not jealous at all.
Oh, later, Felron. I think she's in, like, not Australia.
New Zealand?
Yes.
Don't lump those together. People don't like it when you lump those together. Let me say, New Zealanders and Australians hate it when you lump them together.
Well, I'm a big dumb American, and I'm like, I don't know, there's a bunch of stuff down there. It's over there. It's far.
And this is the last bit we see of Rand for a while. I mean, we see a little bit of him in The Dragon Reborn, but...
Not a ton.
Not a ton.
Ironically.
And when he comes back, he becomes King Rand. And so this is the last little bit of Farm Boy Rand I think we get.
Yeah, after this, he's Warlord Rand.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?